I'd like to welcome in now Dr. Catherine Macdonald, Director of the Shark Research and Conservation Program at the University of Miami. Dr. Macdonald, thank you so much for your time. First of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about what Brooke said there. How critical is it to have a quick response like that medically when it comes to a shark attack?
With any serious injury at the beach, rapid and appropriate medical response plays a key role in people staying safe. So it's a huge deal to have medical responders ready to react to any emergency.
So, Doctor, were you surprised at not only the number of people hurt over the weekend, but also by the fact that all of those attacks, 3 of them, happened within a 90-minute time frame?
Yes, these are incredibly rare events in general, and even more so to happen in such close proximity to each other. The footage that I've seen from that day suggests that there were a lot of fish present in the waters near the beach at the time. And so anywhere that fish are, sharks may be actively feeding. And that's a good signal that you may want to be very careful about what you're doing in the water at that point.
All right, so anywhere the fish are, that's certainly important to note. Officials right now are warning people to be alert. At the top of this, we said, officials are on high alert. Do you think the risk is higher this season compared to the past?
I think that the risk of encountering a shark at the beach is always very, very low. That said, we can take some steps that reduce risk further, including staying near other people when we're in the water, staying in relatively shallow water, not swimming where there are lots of bait fish present or where the water is very murky and visibility is limited. Sharks have very little interest in encountering people, so you want to make it very easy for them to avoid it.
Yeah, it's important, very important to note that, sharks have very little interest. But I want to talk about the video that we're looking at right now. This apparently a bull shark seems, to be aggressively responding to a jet ski. You are the expert here. Kind of walk us through what we are seeing here and some potential whys, like why this would be happening.
Looking at this video without any other context, it looks to me like this jet ski is following this shark fairly aggressively, and that the shark is turning around to signal that it really does not appreciate what's happening. I would consider that something that these folks are generating through their behavior rather than something that shark is doing independently.
And it is, very important to know you are the expert here, and it is important, as you said, to know the context of this. The risk of being bitten by a shark, you've already said it, Dr. Macdonald, is extremely low, but we know that the fear of being bitten is very high for some people. Do you think some of that is because of the media coverage? But obviously, we still need to talk about it to make people aware. So is it kind of about trying to find the middle ground?
I think that a lot of people carry around a certain amount of fear just of the ocean in general, especially people who didn't grow up on the ocean or who aren't super confident swimmers may just find not being able to touch the bottom or see the bottom quite scary. And so I think sharks do tap into some of those existing fears for people around the ocean and a lack of control that can then kind of carry over into sharks themselves.
And my last question for you, what is the biggest misconception, do you think, about sharks, being that you study them?
I think that there are many, but probably the most common one is that sharks are interested in people as food or are aggressive towards people when left alone. And my own experience is the opposite. To some degree, part of my job is bothering sharks, right? We catch them to sample them. And even so, it's very clear to me that the thing that sharks want the most is to get away from us and avoid us to the extent that they can. So making it very obvious that you're a person is going to make it obvious to a shark that they don't want anything to do with you.
Excellent, excellent advice there. Shark research expert, Dr. Catherine Macdonald, thank you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.